Hey everybody, Josh DiStefano here, pianist, composer, writer, teacher, and today I'm going to talk to you about music college. Namely, should you go to music school after you finish high school? So let's talk about music college at 18. But first, if you're new to the channel, please think about subscribing and bing, ringing that bell. This breaks down into three questions. It's not as simple as should you go to school for music at 18. It's really, one, should you go to college? Two, should you go to music college? And three, should you go to music college right after high school? And I'll do my best to demystify these things here. So the first question is, should I go to college? Absolutely. College is great. It's an amazing time period in your life. It's where you take everything you learned from growing up, from your environment, your community, your family, your friends, everybody you went to school with, and you take that knowledge and who you are into that person out into the world, and you start to bounce it off ideas, and you met all the other people coming from wherever they come from, assuming you don't go to the local school right down the street from you with all of your friends from high school. And you start colliding with each other, in a lot of different ways. And you realize what you want to keep of all that stuff you brought with you and what you want to discard. And so you really become your own person. It's a very, very exciting time in your life. You're going to make lifelong friends. You're going to have a blast. You're going to be living on your own, most likely for the first time, surrounded by a bunch of other kids that are living on their own. And you're going to think, this is amazing, and it's a lot of fun. For all the amazingness it is, I don't know that it's super conducive to studying because you've got so much other stuff going on about becoming an adult that you might not always be focused on your schoolwork. And I can say that from experience, I was not always the best student because I was worried about partying or doing this or doing that with my friends. So when I went to school later in life, I was much better student because I already knew who I was, and even though I had much more responsibilities, kids, full-time job, I got much higher grades in grad school than I did in my undergrad. Two, should you go to school for music? Music college is great for some things. It's amazing because you are now surrounded by like-minded people. People that think about music all the time. When I was growing up, I had a band and we'd talk about music, but nobody thought about it nearly as much as I did. I was always kind of obsessed with practicing or writing songs, and none of my other friends were that into it, if they were into it at all. And when I went to Berklee, suddenly everybody was like me, and they knew different things than I did. And so we would bounce ideas off each other, and it was just constant music 24/7. And all the teachers were giving us new information and new ideas and pointing us into new things. And so I was like a sponge and absorbing this huge tidal wave of musical knowledge. It was far more than I could actually absorb as a sponge, the sponge to tidal wave analogy. But it was amazing. And that's hard to duplicate without actually being there. But what you won't get from music school is a job. You're going to get out, and you're going to be exactly as likely to have a job as you were when you got in. There's nobody at the end waiting to sweep up the top 30% of candidates and say, hey, come work at our studio, or come score our movies, or come on tour with us immediately. That kind of stuff isn't going to happen. There's nobody there. It's not like becoming a plumber or a teacher or a nurse where there are careers waiting for you. There are not careers waiting for you as a musician. You have to be a magician to make your own career. So what you have to do is then you have to hustle. You have to carve your own musical existence out of thin air. Which is how I ended up in the Army. Which is a job I could have gotten right out of high school or even with the GED. So music is great. It's great immersion. Music school is great immersion, but there are no jobs waiting for you. And what probably is waiting for you especially if you go to a school like I went with Berklee or some private school, is a crippling amount of debt, which you get out of school with no job and suddenly, boom, oh, you owe us these $60,000 back. Number 3, the third question, should you go to school at music school right after you get out of high school? And if we take what we now know is that when you graduate from music college, you will not have a job waiting for you. That means you have to create your own job. You have to hustle. You have to network. You have to really carve out and shape your own experience. That takes a lot of social maturity and emotional maturity. And I can tell you, I didn't have that when I graduated college because I was about 22. There was no way I was ready to do all that. Some people were, for sure. But I would say those people are in the minority. Most people, you've just sort of discovered who you are. You're not ready to craft your own road from scratch, to lay down brick by brick your existence. Of all the people I went to school with, a handful of them have made it and really got up to that sort of upper level that we all thought we'd achieve. About half of them have found a way to make a living. They're paying their bills. You know, they're putting food on the table. None of them, but they're certainly not rich. I can't speak to how well they're paying off their loans, but they're making a living doing music. And then the other half, they've just given it up entirely. Maybe they hustled for a few years and got burnt out. Maybe they never even got started. But that music degree is just collecting dust in their garage. So these are things to think about. I was not ready. If I could go back and do it again, I would have given myself a few years after high school to go find myself, learn how to be an adult, get more advanced in all my skills. I felt like I wasn't nearly ready enough with the skills either. I would have gained a lot more had I had a few more years under my belt of performing and writing and everything else. But socially and emotionally mature enough for the hustling and the networking, there was no way. That took me years after I got out of college before I was prepared for doing that kind of stuff. If you've enjoyed this video, please think about subscribing and hitting the old like button. And if you have anything you'd like to tell me, hit it in the comments below. I'll see you next time.